Big Brother, mainstream media, government cover-ups. You want answers? Well, so does he. He's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network. And now, live from Austin, Texas, Alex Jones.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. It is Monday, the 5th day of April, 2010. Until the bottom of the hour, we have Congressman Ron Paul with us, and we appreciate him coming on. Congressman, good to have you here.
Good to be with you.
There is so much going on. I've got a lot of important questions I want to ask you, but out of the gates, what is most important on your plate that you want to warn the American people about today?
Oh, there are too many things. I don't know which one's the worst. You know, the finances, they're so bad, and they're getting much worse. You know, the way they're spending the money, running up the debt. I think the financial crisis is getting so much closer. Interest rates are going up. I think that's a major problem we face. What bugs me about it is that I don't think he believes he's achieved great things, you know, by flooding the money with the market, saving the country from depression, taking care of his friends, and the people who lost their jobs don't have a voice. So he thinks he's had a great victory. But the second thing is what's going on over in the Middle East. That's getting much worse. The Iraqi situation is worse. There's rumors now that they won't remove any troops at all. And, of course, we're going to be up to 100,000 troops in Afghanistan. And Karzai is now feeling very bold and critical of the United States. So when that happens, you know, I just wonder how we'll handle that, because, you know, at times when our good friends start to act on their own, we usually get rid of them or, you know, desert them or go on their own, you know. So I think that thing is a whole mess and can really blow up in our face.
Well, let's get into the economy then first. I've seen the different job charts showing that this is the worst recession since the late 1940s. And meanwhile, I have a Business Week article from 2 weeks ago where the federal regulators are pressuring public and private pension funds to be invested, quote, in failed banks. We have Geithner in the news with China talking about not buying as many dollars. We have open discussion by Moody's and other top rating services of the U.S. losing their AAA rating. The economic situation appears to be spiraling downwards.
Well, I don't think there's any doubt about that. But there's still a lot of people with their head in the sand, and I don't know whether they're lying to themselves, but some of them really believe that things have turned around. They look at the other side of the story, and they say, you know, more jobs are being found, and that, you know, staying under 10%, and there's GDP is going up, and they either try to fool the people or they fool themselves. But ultimately, though, the market rules. The market will dictate, and everybody will catch on. But I think where the disconnect is that the government is putting a positive spin on it, but you know, the people that you talk to and the people in the Tea Party movement, they know better. You know, that's why they're so doggone upset. They're not buying into this. This is a completely different year than we've had in, I guess, many years.
Well, the AP reported last week that half of the so-called new jobs are government jobs and census jobs. And we know that the unemployment number is really above 20%. So even with cooked numbers, they're claiming that we've gotten a small amount of job increases.
Yeah, and in this last report, there was a lot of part-time jobs, too. They weren't real jobs. There was part-time jobs, government jobs, and I don't think there's that much good news in that report at all.
Congressman Ron Paul, let's talk about the health care bill, how it was passed, what it really does, the best ways you think the states can counter this. I think we shouldn't just have lawsuits and trust the federal courts, state-level nullification. Specifically on the health care bill, you talked about Obama being emboldened, now he wants his carbon tax to try to pass that in the Senate, declaring CO2 a toxic waste. Let's talk about health care legislation, because we've seen Obama say, look, it's been a few weeks since this passed. The birds are singing. The sun is shining. But he knows that this thing doesn't get phased in but until next year and the 3 years after that. So that's a very deceptive game he's playing of perception.
And you know what he'll probably do is, by that time, whoever's in charge, if he's there, whoever, they'll say, oh, maybe we didn't do quite enough. Maybe what we really need is that single-payer system. So failure to them is just another opportunity. And if it's in the next year or next 6 months, the people only hear good news and they don't see what it's going to really cost, he may get away with it for a year without it coming down hard on them. But ultimately, though, it's an illusion to think that they can do what they claim and not cost any money and improve health care. That's a hard sell.
Well, you're a medical doctor yourself, not just a congressman, and of course you're also someone who's researched how the economy really works, specifically for people that have questions about the health care legislation that's now law. A, what is in it that concerns you most? B, what do you think the most effective constitutional strategy is to defeat this?
Well, the process that if the people were awake enough and there were enough of us, it would be just to change the Congress, change the president, repeal all that stuff. I mean, that's the smoothest way to do it. The part that bothers me the most, of course, the process that you talked about. I mean, how they pulled it off, and we passed the rule, and the rule passed the Senate version, and then they go to reconciliation. That was horrible. But I think philosophically, the worst part was that they moved away from any opening for a private option. They talk about a public option, but what about a private option? Why don't individuals have the right to get out? Fortunately, some people, opt out of the public school system, and they have private schooling and homeschooling, and why don't we have that in medicine? Let them opt out, and that's the HSA approach. But they minimize those. It's much more difficult, and if you opt out, just say, I don't want it, I'll take care of myself, I'll handle everything, I don't want to be a ward of the state, you have to pay a fine, pay your $9,000. And that to me was a big move in the wrong direction. And instead of thinking the day after a bill like this is passed, let's repeal the whole thing. Well, yeah, that'd be great if you could, but maybe if we would narrow it down, and I want to introduce legislation to this, just narrow it down to legalize a private option, to get out, take care of yourself. And that might be less confusing than going through 2,000 pages and explaining, what is good, what is bad, what we're going to keep. Can you really get rid of everything? That whole thing. So, but I would like to see the day where we just have a changeover in Congress and we wouldn't be have to fighting these things over and over. I mean, they pass this stuff, and then the people now are becoming more informed and they get upset. So there's a lot of frustration out there turning into anger.
What do you see as the best strategy to defeat this, though, at the state level? I mean, can't the states nullify this, because it does force the states to pay for a large part of the federal mandate, and so we have attorney generals now suing, but I don't think that's enough. I'm all for that if people want to do it, but they're behind the eight ball there. It's not going to be accomplished. It's sort of like, they take our highway funds, and then they come and say, well, you get your highway funds from the federal government, we're going to set your speed limits. Everybody has to drive 55 miles an hour. That's what they did for 20 years. And they say, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to fight it. We don't want that federal law. All right, we'll just keep your highway funds. And that's what they'll do on Medicare. I mean, what are you going to do? Repeal every state participation in Medicaid and this system? And then they'll make the problems worse. There are unfunded mandates. They're going to have more unfunded mandates if they just, try to ignore the law. So
I think if states want to do it, and I think it's good that they're talking about it, and they pass these resolutions. That represents, some good PR on how upset the people are. But I don't think that is the solution. The ultimate solution for all this is people having a better understanding and a better trust in the way the market works and the way freedom works, and you don't need the government in any state taking care of us from cradle to grave. If that isn't repealed, that attitude, tinkering around on the edges on pieces of legislation won't do the trick.
Congressman, you've talked about the fact that what's really going to end this is the country collapsing financially. Can you speak to that? And then also, as a medical doctor, my dad's a physician, and everyone knows that federal money comes in for abortion